All right, it's Colonel Cliff Soreen. Somebody said, I was a colonel a dozen years ago. I should have been promoted to Major General or something. Well, thank you very much. But no, I have not been promoted to General Officer, and I'm quite happy being a colonel, bringing myself along. Um, oh, for God's sake, they're telling me now the reason I keep getting passed over for being a general is because generals don't belong in the field. And if you're a colonel, you're more expected to be out in the field. General is like an admiral in the Navy. You don't expect an admiral in the Navy to be, getting his feet dirty or whatever. And, whereas, anyways, it's very difficult to explain it. And, I'm not terribly concerned about it. Sure, it's a bump in grade, a bump in salary. You get more pomp and circumstances, but yeah, I'd rather be out in the field getting my feet wet, so to speak. And it's the same with Sergeant Fogelis. I mean, Sergeant Fogelis, if he was working at any major university, he'd be a PhD because he is so brilliant, he's so intuitive, and he's getting a technical sergeant salary because he wants to be serving his country. And no one's figured out that he probably could be run through officer candidate school and then given a majorship or something for valor or what have you. But the point of the matter is, we're very satisfied doing what we're doing, and we're not too concerned about what our rank is in the military. Although we could use more budget because, we're stretched very thin. They expect us to do miracles, and we usually pull them off. Nevertheless, we always say, well, if we only had, like in the X-Files, they had the lone gunman, side of the research department, and we don't really have much of a research department. We kind of research things on the fly. I'm not going to talk about Scotch whiskey. I don't think it's necessary to get into the fact that traditionally there's a wide gulf between Mexican officers who like tequila and people who are more from northern climates that like something like Scotch whiskey to warm themselves up when it's 40 below. Not saying it's 40 below yet, but the Farmer's Almanac says that this January is going to be very cold. And most Januaries are. And the Mexican officers like to go to Havana and either drink, I guess it's going to be rum in Havana, or if they're going to Puerto Vallarta or Jalisco province, it's going to be, tequila. I don't like tequila too much because I had a bad incident report when I was about 17 years old, and someone bought some really cheap tequila that, I think it was made in a bathtub because it was absolutely foul. But anyway, after that, I've never really cared for tequila. And as for Scotch whiskey, no, I kind of like brandy with creme de menthe. It's called a Stinger, and it's a famous drink in Duluth, Minnesota. If you've ever been to Duluth, you just go to the library and ask for a Stinger, and you'll know what it's all about. I'm sorry, I've really got off topic. I was going to talk about Sigmund Freud and his complexes. And the idea is that his complexes are somehow tied up with karma. I'm not sure if karma is even applicable to Sigmund Freud. I mean, karma comes out of India and Freud comes out of Switzerland. Um, so it's like, cross contaminating your chicken with your beef. I mean, yeah. And then, well, there was Freud, there was Alfred Adler, and C.G. Jung, Jung, who were, the big three, but then there was also Stella Adler. So, I mean, many different people. Festinger was one other person always quoted in the psychology textbook, and I can never remember what Festinger did. My memory is muddy sometimes, and drinking stingers doesn't help. But my French comrades from Paris always say, bottle of red wine always helps the flow. I find them vomiting violently later on because they drank too much. Too much very heavy red wine, along with that stinky cheese they insist upon. I know it's not good for you. I try not to get too involved with booze altogether. It's more if the generals are in town and they want scotch, sure, I'll pour them a scotch, and then I'll pour me a scotch, and then I'll just discreetly dump it in the waste paper basket while they're not looking, because I don't want to drink it. Not that good scotch isn't good, or good cigar is good, but it tends to just inflame my stomach, and I can't sleep for the next night, and I don't feel well the next day. I learned many years ago to avoid these kind of beverages completely. And as far as Canada legalizing marijuana, I still don't recommend marijuana for people. I'm an old-fashioned Republican, and we knew way back in 1973 under Richard Nixon that it was a good idea to ban all kinds of substances like marijuana, magic mushrooms, and peyote, because people on these things tend to end up in the emergency room because they're seeing things that aren't there, and it's very expensive. The doctors get very fed up with this, and we just thought if we banned these substances completely, that at least the Republicans, who are law-abiding citizens, wouldn't use them. We knew the Democrats would. Everyone knows left-leaning Democrats love to partake in whatever the hell comes around. I won't talk about President Clinton's brother, who was a cokehead, and sure, Republicans are known to get into the alcohol, and it's definitely a problem, and I don't condone alcohol use by Republicans, beer busts by enlisted men, etc., etc. I always encourage them to go for a cold shower. It's the old-fashioned way of dealing with raging hormones. Be that as it may, I did not vote for President Trump. I did not vote at all. I was totally disgusted with the political process. I'm not a registered Republican anymore, nor an independent. I don't know what to do at election time. I usually run away. I go on a long 7-mile run until the polls close, and then I come home. I have a shower, and I go to bed. And then the next day, I try to avoid the news as much as possible. Maybe 3 weeks later, I'll hear who won the election, and then I'll know who the commander-in-chief is. I've got to go. Sergeant Fogelis is he wants a baked Alaska, and he knows that the last time he did it, he burnt the meringue. He's too much brandy. Anyways, I've got to go. I got to go.